Brooke, thank you. Here now, former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. He is also a graduate of Harvard Law School. Thank you for being here, Neama, as always. First of all, does Harvard have a strong case against the administration, and what do you anticipate will be round one in court today?
Marnie, they do, and it's a very strong free speech argument. And the argument is this, that because the Trump administration is really engaged in content-based regulation, we're talking about targeting Harvard because of pro-Palestinian protesters and the like, that they're going to have an argument both not only in district court with this judge, Judge Burroughs, who has ruled in favor of Harvard before. She, of course, is the judge who ruled that their race-based academic admissions were constitutional. Of course, that decision was later reversed by the Supreme Court. And Harvard also has an argument that the Trump administration is violating the Administrative Procedures Act by pulling these federal funds without going through the due process. So I think both on the First Amendment argument and the Procedures Act, I think Harvard has a good case, not just though in district court. They're going to go all the way, and this case will likely end up before the U.S. Supreme Court, Marnie.
The administration no doubt prepared for that. So what do you expect their legal argument to be?
Their argument is that they're enforcing federal law, specifically Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which says that universities that receive federal funding, they can't engage in race or religious discrimination. The challenge is some of the things the administration is asking for, like plagiarism, really has nothing to do with Title VI, and Trump's own words really indicate that this is all about, the anti-Semitism, the treatment of Jewish students and the like. So to the extent that Harvard can move away from that and saying this really has nothing to do with the race or religious issues at all, I think they're going to have a strong argument here.
There is a great likelihood this case would set a certain precedent. Would you imagine there are a number of universities waiting to see the outcome of this before then deciding how they would act, since federal funding is so critical to many of these schools' research?
I do, Marnie. And of course, Harvard is the oldest and most prestigious of the American universities, not just because I went there, but in terms of their endowment. They're in a position to fight in a way that other colleges may not. And the backlash that Columbia received after they seemed to capitulate and bend the knee to the Trump administration, I think you're going to see Harvard push this case the entire way. And I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be at the Supreme Court later this afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised if Harvard really wins, maybe perhaps unanimously before the Supreme Court. Let's not forget, just last year in a pretty big First Amendment case, the NRA won unanimously against the state of New York. So even a lot of the conservative justices are really going to be on Harvard's side, I believe. Folks like Justice Gorsuch, Chief Justice Roberts, a Harvard graduate, Justice Kagan, who was the dean of Harvard Law School. So I think in terms of the audience there, I think Harvard has a good chance of winning, and you'd expect that a lot of other universities are going to follow suit.
And how has this impacted, a graduate of Harvard, those who are in that community? What's the conversation among those that you talk to about Harvard taking up this fight?
It's a big deal in universities and campuses. So, for instance, I'm on the UCLA Political Science Board, and the UCs have a hiring freeze across the board. So this affects, undergraduate, graduate students because, federal funding is a very big deal. We're talking about billions of dollars, in terms of research, in terms of studies. So at least in the short term, it will be very painful for these universities. That's why they're trying to push these cases as aggressively as possible to try to get restraining orders, preliminary injunctions, get that federal funding flowing, because really lives are at stake, as well as the students that attend these colleges and universities.
Neama Rahmani, as always, thanks. It's nice to see you.
Thanks, Marnie. Good seeing you too.